Hello friends, how are you today? I'm so excited to be here to talk with you about energy and why one person matters, why one person can change the world, can have an extraordinary effect. We can look at someone like the president and say, wow, I can see how one person can have an effect on the world. But I want to really talk about us as individuals, and I want to combine both divinity and our personal experience, because in my view, these things are one. This came about in a couple of ways. The first thing that happened was I was at my stove and I buy milk in bottles, and the bottles are returnable. So I have little bottles and big bottles, and the little bottles, I put them into a pyramid shape. It's a little precarious, but it works, I have two bottles and then one centered exactly on the lids of the bottles below it. One day, I simply took the lid of a cast iron pot and I put it down in a certain place in the stove. And I certainly didn't bang it down or, move it with any force. I gently just placed the lid down, and as I did that, the bottles fell. Now, of course, I quickly ran to grab them. Luckily, there just weren't too many of them at that point. I think I only had the stack too tall at that point. And it was amazing to me how just that one tiny vibration on the stove affected the pyramid of bottles. It wasn't anything like that you would have thought would cause these bottles to fall. It was very slight. And that got me thinking in the moment about how one movement, one voice, one communication, one act in the world can have an extraordinary effect. And I thought that I would share with you a couple of stories about this. The other thing that happened is that I joined a new social media platform. I joined Truth Social. And if you're on there, look me up and follow me, and I'll follow you back. It's very exciting, but I saw a meme on there, and it was a finger holding a seed, a little tiny mustard seed, kind of like these here in the palm of this hand. And the caption on the meme said, "I have a mustard seed, and I'm not afraid to use it." And what does this refer to? It refers to the parable of the mustard seed that Jesus told, that is in the Bible. And I'm going to talk to you about that story in a moment. But because I was thinking about what that story really means, like for us on an individual level in the current modern day world. It's interesting because the news, cycle, I think a lot of us have been now really paying attention to the cycles, and first it's this one story of something big and huge. It's this next story replaces that of something big and huge. And they're always stories of like some kind of global impact that as a living human being, you wonder, how could I have an influence on this? And in a way, that aspect of the news cycle can make us feel kind of small. It can make us feel despairing, right? We're always presented with these stories that cause fear, that are huge problems. One wonders, how can these be solved? And I'm not talking about this today to advocate solving any of those stories that are in the news. I'm talking about today what one individual can do in their life and what we're motivated by the divine within us, by spiritual guidance to do that may or may not have an effect on the world. But when we walk hand in hand with that spiritual guidance, powerful things can happen and miracles can occur. Let me read you the poem that I wrote today. I've collected mustard seeds, long, hard-won seeds of faith. In my hand, the faithful seeds provide resilience that I earn. From my soul, my faith expands. I stand forth firm and strong. In my heart, the love I feel seeks to guide me, mission bound. I had a beautiful experience of faith last week. I created a video about it called Shocking Events. But in the midst of this shocking event that occurred, relying completely and totally on faith, just miracles just occurred, amazing coincidences. And I'm still in awe by the series of events that happened. It's interesting because thinking about how one vibration, one act, one moment can make a huge difference in your own life or in the lives of others. It got me thinking about a couple weeks ago when I was walking down by the rock beach. I told a story recently about how one of the cliffs fell from the rock beach, and now it's just a huge pile of rocks and sand. Well, I walked past that one day recently, and I went around the curve. And this part of the rock beach is, people don't often go there because you can only reach it during low tide. So it was very low tide, and I was standing at a distance from the cliff. I was just looking at the sky, the water, and musing on the energies. But my ears kept picking up a sound, and it was the sound of pitter-patters. Just these slight, like little bits of rock and sand. And it was a constant, almost constant flow as I stood there. And I realized, I turned around and I could actually see small rocks coming down the cliff. And I had this striking realization that what I was watching was a landslide in motion. It is interesting because you don't often think about when does a landslide begin. And there I was, standing out on the beach, having the opportunity and even the honor of witnessing the very, very beginnings. Because when you walk by a landslide, right, where there's a huge amount of land that has separated and fallen, like on from the hillside to the ocean that I had mentioned, you think about that striking moment when the massive amount of material dislodges, but you don't think about the signs ahead of time, because the landslide in that moment that's actually the final moment when the large majority of the earth comes down, right? Those are the final moments. But you don't know how long that it was building, right? How many weeks, days, months, years have the little bits of material been, just jingle-jangling down the hill? And as I turned and saw the tiny rocks, I knew that I was watching a moment in time that would lead to a much mightier moment, a mighty moment when the shape of the land would change, when a dynamic moment would happen, a dynamic response of the weight of the land on the hill. And what would cause that? Will it be a storm? Will it be earth shaking? Will it be the ocean pounding up against the hillside one more time, one last time, in that form? Or maybe it will be a slight vibration, just ever so slight, like the pot lid gently placed on the stove that caused the bottles to finally fall. Just the slightest whisper that dislodges something greater. And when can these things happen? That something so small as the mustard seed, causes such a greater effect. Well, we can look back at these words of Jesus Christ in the Bible. What did he say? Let me read it to you now. So here's what happens, and this is in Mark 9:14 to 29, and it's also in Luke 9:37. What happens is in the Bible story, there's a man that comes up to Jesus and kneels before him and says, "Have mercy on my son, because this boy has seizures. He's suffering terribly." The man says, "I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him." At this point, Jesus is somewhat frustrated. Oh, goodness. He exclaims his frustration and then says, "Bring the boy here to me." When the boy came before him, Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the boy, and the boy was healed from that moment. That is the story. But next, the disciples come to Jesus privately and ask, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" And then this is what Jesus says in Mark 9:20. "Because you have so little faith," he answered, "for truly I tell you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." That's the quote. What is happening here? Okay, in this story, what Jesus is saying is, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed is extraordinarily small. What he's saying is, if you have just the whisper of faith, the tiniest amount, manifesting that within yourself, the smallest belief, right, in divinity, in the divine, that could flow through you, that God could provide something for you, the Most High, the Creator of the universe, that this is possible, that a miracle could occur if you have just the smallest, tiniest amount of faith. That is enough to create an extraordinary event. That is what he is saying here. Because he is saying, faith the size of a mustard seed, that you could move a mountain with that level of faith, the tiniest, seemingly tiniest vibration, right, could move a mountain. How is that possible? Faith is an expanded energy. While it might seem small to a human being living in the physical body on earth, when you have faith in your field, when you believe that the divine will provide for you, when you believe that if you ask, your question will be answered, when you believe that if you ask for assistance, you will receive, when you allow yourself to receive because you know you are worthy of receiving from divinity, and then that manifests in the human world. When you believe that you are worthy enough to be loved and for that love to be shown to you as a living human being in this world, and that God provides that grace. The Most High, the Creator of the universe, provides this grace to us, that the Divine Mother offers this grace to us because we have this faith. Okay? Faith is an expanded dimensional state. And while it may seem small from a linear perspective in the human world, the depth, the layers, the richness of just the smallest amount of faith, the expansiveness of this in energy and in our own energy field is beyond our comprehension. How impactful, how extraordinary the quality of that energy becomes when it manifests in the human world by our agreement to believe that something's possible, from our willingness to embody divinity and to humbly accept and receive the gifts that God has for us in the human world, from our knowing that we are worthy enough. We are worthy when we choose to align, and that when we choose to align with divinity as we perceive it through us, with divine will through us, when we choose to embody our living soul to the extent that we can, as fully as possible, as living human beings. And we know this is possible because Jesus Christ said in the Bible, "This you will do and more." And what did he do? He fully embodied his God self. I mean, that's huge, what he said that would be possible for humanity to do. So can you see that this is why even the smallest amount of faith works miracles through us, brings the miraculous into our lives, shifts our greater being, manifests our highest outcomes. Woo! Faith, my friends, is what keeps me in it for the long haul. Faith, love, and knowing that the divine is present in this world, that as living human beings, we provide a platform, a landing place for divinity itself and the energy and the embodiment of the divine when we willingly align with the true essence of our own soul, when we live this, when we think, feel, act, intend in alignment with this energy. And are we humans, right? We're human, and humans make mistakes. If I can embody this for 5 seconds, some days that's a win. Some days, maybe I can embody this for an hour, maybe all day if I practice. Some days maybe I can't quite grasp it. But simply knowing that it's possible is faith in itself. Whether you can feel it in the moment. Because in those moments when we can't feel that connection for whatever reason, we're in shock or something's happened or whatever it may be, the simple knowing of the presence of divinity, the knowing that we're a living embodied soul is enough to create miracles in our lives, is enough to achieve our highest outcomes, even if it's over time. But sometimes we have the miracle of experiencing it all in one moment, in one precious moment of grace and connection with the divine, with divinity itself. And in that moment we receive with awe and gratitude all the proof that we thought that this is possible in our lives. Whew. That landslide that appears to happen in one moment occurs over hours, days, weeks, and months. And that's why every moment, every hour, every day that you can touch in with that true frequency of yourself, the divinity that you are, you're building a practice. It doesn't have to be something where I have to sit for 1 hour and meditate, or I have to sit for, this much amount of time and read this, and I have to do it that way. No, it can be a living daily part of your life. I've got, now I've got this Bible app on my phone. I can just pausing, at the grocery store before I start driving again. After I loaded the groceries in the car, I can just read a couple chapters or a couple paragraphs or a couple sentences here. I pause at a red light and I can just touch my hand with my heart and feel the flow of true unconditional love for me. If I can't feel it in the moment, I can know that it's possible. I can feel the warmth on my skin and know that that is love, and that my body perceives this as love, and that my body is grateful for this moment and for the human touch, right? That I give myself over my heart, my hand and my heart. I love myself, right? I give myself that reassurance, that love. I can touch my hand to my cheek and know that I am loved by the divine in this moment through me. Right? Through the life force that flows through my hand, through the divinity that flows through the chakra in my hand, whether it's from an angel, my guardian of the highest light, guardian angel of the highest light, higher self of the highest light, whether it's from my own soul emanating from my heart through my arm to my hand. I am loved. The tiniest moments, the tiniest signs, just like the grains of sand coming down the hillside, all add up. And some days we may have a big event, and some days we may go for quite a long time. But these seeds of faith sustain us, and they sustain us for the long haul.